All right, Chapter 11, Video 2, we're still talking about Andrew Jackson and the age of Jackson. Now, Jackson had a very poor record when it comes to his Indian policy. And in Jackson's mind, the only good Indian was a dead Indian. So it kind of gives you a framework to keep him in mind. He is a complicated figure when it comes to this issue, but generally the strikes are against him. In 1832, there was something called the Black Hawk War, where the Sauk and Fox Indians were chased to the Wisconsin Territory and many were massacred. This is the time period of the Seminole Wars in Florida, where the Seminoles were being led by Osceola, and we were sending troops down to fight them. Jackson certainly had fought many Indians throughout his career, and didn't hesitate to do so even while he was president. Well, in 1829, gold was discovered in the North Georgia mountains where Cherokee Indians were living. And suddenly, it's going to become important to folks in the government to get the Cherokee off this land. And in 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, which said all Indians east of the Mississippi were to be moved west of the Mississippi. Well, the Cherokee had a very civilized culture. If you were to look at their communities from a distance, it wouldn't look any different much from the American communities. They have schools and hospitals and a government and so forth. And they decided to fight the Indian Removal Act through the court system. And the first case was Cherokee Nation versus Georgia in 1831. Chief Justice John Marshall is going to rule with the court that the Cherokee have their own nation, and they have the right to that land in North Georgia until they sell it to us or give it to us or in some way choose to surrender to us. Well, Jackson and the government continued to pursue that land and moving as the Indian Removal Act had said. So the Cherokee try again. And the second case is Worcester versus Georgia in 1832. And again, Chief Justice John Marshall and the Supreme Court ruled Georgia law has no force over the Cherokee. The Cherokee should be allowed to stay. When Andrew Jackson hears this ruling, he says something to the effect of, Marshall has made his ruling, now let's see him enforce it. Well, it's not the Supreme Court's job to enforce the law. It's the president's job to enforce the law. And Jackson is not going to enforce it. And he probably should have been impeached for this. 1838, 17,000 Cherokee were forced off of their land east of the Mississippi. They were forced to Indian Territory across the Mississippi in what is called the Trail of Tears, where roughly 4,000 or so Indians died. Shifting gears, Andrew Jackson hated the Bank of the United States, and it's up for recharter in 1836. He wants to go ahead and deal with it, right? And so it becomes one of the main issues in the election of 1832. Jackson is running for re-election against Henry Clay, who was running as the Whig candidate. Henry Clay thinks he's going to win because if Jackson doesn't support the Bank of the United States, Jackson will not get wealthy voters. But Clay has forgotten that there are so many poor people voting now. We said 4 times as many voters in 1828 as in 1824. And these poor voters support Jackson. And if Jackson doesn't like the Bank of the United States, they don't like the Bank of the United States either. So it's not going to hurt Jackson in the election. Jackson will get reelected. And he decides to go ahead and kill off that bank before he can worry about it being rechartered. And he's going to pull all the money out of the Bank of the United States and distribute it to the state banks. So he doesn't steal it and put it in his pocket, but he takes it out of the Bank of the United States and puts it in the state banks around the country. This was a very controversial move, and some people in his administration will refuse to do it and be fired. The Senate is going to censure Jackson for doing this, which is a way of officially scolding Jackson. It's going to destabilize the economy. and it will lead directly to an economic panic, what's called the Panic of 1837. Now, the Panic of 1837 will hit after Jackson had left office. He had done his 2 terms and he left, and he was followed by Martin Van Buren. And so Martin Van Buren is going to have to deal with the Panic of 1837, and people blame Van Buren for it. The economy comes to a halt. We go into a depression. State banks were issuing money that was not backed by gold or silver in our treasury. Land prices were going up, and then Congress is going to pass something called the Specie Circular. Specie is gold and silver coins. And the Specie Circular said that if you're going to buy public land from the government will accept only gold or silver as payment. No other form of money will be accepted. This is going to lead a lot of people to feel like if the government won't accept these other forms of money, then why should I at my business or anywhere else? And so if we're going to use only specie, only gold and silver money, the economy will come very much to a slowdown and halt. And then we come to the election of 1840. In the election of 1840, the Democrats will run Martin Van Buren for re-election, but he is extremely unpopular because of the Panic of 1837. Now, he had taken a number of measures to try to get us out of the economic crisis that we were in, but he wasn't able to do it in the time that he had. So he's very unpopular. He's running against a Whig candidate named William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison had defeated a group of Indians led by Tecumseh a few years earlier at the Battle of Tippecanoe. And Tippecanoe became his nickname. So William Henry Harrison was running with John Tyler with the first catchy campaign slogan we had of Tippecanoe and Tyler too. The thing was, it was a lot of catchy slogans, not a lot of substance. Turns out we don't really know a whole lot about what William Henry Harrison would have done as president, because he will be the first president to die in office. He will have served about a month.